there's such an opportunity for somebody to I said this before, but I really think what you're talking about is develop your own style, come at weddings a whole different way, and find 5 people who want that.
Yeah.
And then experiment with that. Or, if you keep imitating somebody else, you're going to be running around in circles.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel a little funny inside. So, I'm thrilled when I see a photographer who's doing something completely different, or I can tell who's really invested a lot and they're not just laying on a preset to make them look like, so I think it's a very tricky game to play, but it's a thrilling ride, no doubt.
Yeah. Tell me, a little bit about when you approach a wedding now, and I think something we talked about over email before was the idea of the imperfect, and being okay with that, and maybe even hunting for the imperfect versus the inspiration. But practically, what does that look like on a wedding day? Or do you tell yourself, I'm going to shoot this differently? Or, how do you find that balance between what is going to look good versus what you're trying? Or do some photographers say, hey, I take the basic and then I take the wild, just to try it? Or are you all wild? What's that look like practically?
Yeah, it's the imperfect is a concept that allows me to not get caught up in controlling the flow. So I see the wedding as this river raft trip. We all get on together. It starts kind of calm, and then the wedding gets going, and then you're going down the rapids, and then the party is kind of going over the waterfall, and all hell breaks loose. But if I allow myself to flow with things as they're happening, that frees me up. And I think a lot of photographers are type A. I'm type Z or something, it's like, but the reason I got there is because I used to take those perfect pictures, say the group pictures, where everybody's sharp, everybody's looking at me. And then I would tell the people who I was shooting that I'm all done. I'd put my camera down and they'd all start laughing.
Yeah.
And then I realized I would fake saying I'm all done, and then I'd start shooting.
Yeah.
And I would put those pictures next to each other. I'd put the sharp, perfect picture and then the other picture next to each other. And there was no doubt that the imperfect picture was truer, was more honest, was more reflection of that personality, that family. And so that's sort of how it evolved. And then I've just pushed it where I'm not, it's letting go of playing it safe. And a lot of people would think, how could you not play it safe at a wedding? It's somebody's wedding.
Yeah.
It's like, you have 8 hours to do it. If I'm much more stressed at a 30-minute corporate portrait of a CEO, those guys scare me. But an 8-hour wedding, if you miss the bride going down the aisle, you get her coming back, the last wedding I did in February, a small wedding in Palm Beach, the bride and groom were walking back after having, the first kiss. They're walking towards me.
Yeah.
And I'm shooting with my Leica, but I also shoot Super 8 just for fun as sort of a gift. So I put it on top of the Leica, and I'm walking backwards with both because I couldn't decide.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm a Libra, I don't know which way to go, and squirrel in the middle of the road.
Yep.
And it's at a point in my life. This is their wedding. I have to go for it. So it's the inverse of playing it safe.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there's something you had mentioned, I think, that was the idea of, it just comes down to values. Is you don't want the perfect photo if it means you lose a emotional moment or a fleeting moment or something like that,
It's really about believability. I don't believe a lot of the perfect pictures.
Yeah.
I've been married 30 years. I'm very happily married. Marriage is not perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was really fighting against. There was a trend maybe 10 years ago of making these absolutely sharp, perfect, beautifully lit, like this is the best day ever, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking that the industry is creating this pressure on a 28-year-old bride for this day. I started seeing people freak out when one thing would go wrong because they were, imagine their wedding not getting into a blog or, so that's really where it came from too, is that we as an industry, we can't put all this pressure on people for this to be heroic, magnificent, the bride and groom on a cliff at sunset. that ain't marriage.
Yeah.
It may be a cool picture.
Yeah.
But, if people don't realize that was 3 weeks before the wedding, they're saying to the photographer in Milwaukee, can we do this at sunset? No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I do group pictures in 23 minutes or less.
Same.
I mean,
yeah.
It's like, get to the party.
Yeah.
It's all yours. Go.
Totally. No.
So it's an ethos of, it's not my wedding, it's theirs. I'm there to document things as they happen.